And we are live. I'll go ahead and call to order the regular meeting of the City Council for August 19th, 2024. First order of business is invocation and pledge of allegiance. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for this opportunity to come together to do the people's business. Lord, we ask that you grant us wisdom and discernment as we seek to make the decisions best for our community. Lord, please be with the men and women in uniform that protect our city and put their lives on the line to ensure the safety of ours and the residents here in Maumelle. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. The first order of business then is, or the next order of business is approval of the minutes of the August 5th regular meeting. You all received a copy of that in the council packet. I'll go ahead and open the floor for discussion. If there is none, I'd entertain a motion to adopt the minutes.
So moved. Second.
Got a motion and second. All those in favor, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed, no. Motion carries. We'll move right into financial statement review. Ms. Sousa, come on down, please.
So good evening, everybody. So we are going to review today notes as of July 2024. So you notice most of the expected revenue from tax collections are in line with budget. The city and county sales taxes collected during 2024 are still lower than in 2023, but we consider we have to leave them as they are because they are reducing the difference little by little. We have three lines higher than 23 and above 2024 budget, that is the Planning and Permits Department, because we have an increase in building permits, as you know. The investment earnings is better return for 2024 because we have an all-year impact versus half year in 2023. And the miscellaneous revenue, that we have the insurance claims revenue in 2024. If you go to the expenditures, we have police, fire, and public works with the salary increases and impact the benefits expenditures as well. In the senior services, we have the building maintenance and the cameras. So that's why the increase in senior services expenditures line. In the city services expenditures, we notice a big increase, but this is because the audit, computer maintenance, and insurance expenditures are higher in 2024. Also, we executed the operational transfer approving budget. It was a transfer from general fund to capital improvements for the $3.2 million for the training facility in the future. $180,000 for an engine, 1 and 2 tower truck, and that's all. And if you go to capital expenditures, in capital expenditures also look higher than in 2023 because we have payments for $740,000 for the pickleball complex construction in 2024. We have the software conversion for police department for $50,000. We have some purchase of police vehicles for $173,000. Camera systems and door access system for the police department for approx $80,000. And camera system for the senior center and community center for $60,000. If you go to next page, page 2, we can review the balance sheet and we can see that the fund balance for the general fund as of July 2024 is $9.8 million after the operational transfer were processed. The requirement for the fund is 4.7 million, that is the 20% of the operational expenses. So the fund balance is okay. It is above requirements for $5.1 million. If you move to page 3, we go to the street fund. And you notice the state turnover is higher, but is compensated by the city street aid program revenue. So we are okay on the street revenue. In the expenditures, we have operational transfer approved in budget was processed as well. It was a transfer for the street from to the Club Manor corridor for $1.2 million. There was also an increase on salaries that is reflected in this line. And in the capital expenditures, they also look higher than in 2023 because we have path improvements, street overlays, and stripping during 2024. And we bought a ramp truck for $200,000 and other street equipment for about $50,000. The fund balance for the street is $3.9 million after the operational transfer. So we are still okay in this fund as well. If you go to the 130, that is the sanitation fund, next page. The sanitation expenditures are lower than previous year as we have not done any capital expenditures this year. And here, if you notice, we increased the fund a little bit. What we did, together with the senior accountant and the auditors, we run an adjustment in 2023 in the financials to capitalize some fixed assets instead of presenting them as a total expenditure. When you capitalize fixed assets, you just take the depreciation. So just to give a little margin to the fund. So we increased the fund to $1 million as of July 2024. In the timing where you approve the increase, then we will have enough money to cover 2024 expenditures. In the next page is just the police and fire fund. Remember, this is just for informative purpose only. The trend is as expected. We continue collecting the 0.5% on regular basis. And that's all what I have, some financial updates. The auditors finished the audit field work as of last week, 2 weeks ago. Then they were on vacation, and they expect to come back soon to finalize the audit and start with the ACFR reporting. I may have good news for you, but we are doing okay. We deliver everything, and everything is in the hands of the auditors now. In the finance department, I'm glad to inform that we started a new project. We are going to control the fixed assets in the new model within OpenGov. Our person in charge of accounts payable is taking over that project, and we already started, all of us together. So we can monitor them much better. So any asset with a cost higher than $5,000 is considered as part of the capital control assets. And we will have another small group for assets that are under $5,000, like computers or phones or things like that, that today they are controlled but in an Excel spreadsheet. For us will be much better, and for us as a team, in the system, and people coming behind us, they will be able to monitor as well. So that's all what I have for today.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Councilmember Mosley?
You answered about the audit. It sounds like it's going really well.
Yes.
And, okay, the sanitation fund, I'm looking at that.
Yes.
I've gotten several calls from constituents, and
I don't have my head in this game on the sanitation fund as much as I would like. And so I just wanted to check with you here. It looks like we're budgeted to go down $1 million in 2024. And if our fund balance right now is $1 million, is there a chance we're going to end up in the negative at the end of the year?
Well, yes, we are going to finish on a negative basis because the fees are not covering all the expenditures. So the answer is yes.
Ms. Sousa, I think the question is the fund balance going to be in the negatives?
Okay. Let me answer then in two parts. The result of the year is going to be negative because the expenditures are not covered by the revenue. But the fund balance is not going to be negative. We have enough fund balance as of today to cover all the expenditures that will be above the revenue. Is it clear?
Not entirely.
So
Help me out.
as we've been talking about, expenditures in the sanitation fund continue to be higher than revenues.
Right.
So year after year, we're depleting the sanitation reserve fund. We will still have money in that account at the end of the year, currently as budgeted.
Okay, great. That's what I was interested in knowing.
And then, just as a heads up, we had fairly large capital expenditures budgeted for this year. I think in the neighborhood of 650,000.
Yes.
600 and something thousand.
$655,000.
Good memory. $655,000 were for sanitation trucks that we put on order this year that we are not expecting to receive and pay for this year. But so that money will be there also, but it's now sort of committed to the future purchases. I think sanitation trucks are still taking us a year or two to receive from when we put the order in. So that, just wanted to pass that information along as well.
Okay, that's very helpful. I'll have one more question. Does anybody else have a question? If not, I'll go ahead and ask it. I was going to mention, I'd asked last time you were here in front of us about a final accounting on a splash pad and playground, the expenditures and the disbursements, and I wanted to mention that Philip Rayburn's gotten me a lot of that information, and I think he said you provided him with all the checks that were written as far as the city side of things for both those projects, and he's going to summarize those for me. So I think I'm getting what I'm looking for.
Okay, good.
I will probably, once I've got everything from him, I'll probably email you and just make sure you're in agreement with what he's got.
Okay.
And
you are correct. I can just deliver what is managed here in the city.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand. Say
That
again.
I can just deliver whatever is managed here in the city of Mamel. Everything that is managed outside the city with, I don't know, donations for a non-profit organization, I do not manage any of that.
Yeah, it would have been nice if, this is a project that was going to benefit the city, and the city brought this nonprofit in as a partner, as I understand. So it would be nice if there was, if our accounting department felt inclined to keep track of the whole thing.
Yeah, it will be nice, but now we have a lot of job to track that as well.
Yeah.
So as far as it is the city of Mamel, if we can keep track and on time of all what we receive here, I think we need to be a little pleased on that. And later on, I don't want to commit on nothing now, we can manage other.
But anyway, at this point, we're still massaging the numbers. Philip had given me some numbers that were ballpark estimates, and he's getting them more exact. So we're, just looking to see how they all shake out finally. So anyway, that's all I've got. Thank you.
Any additional discussion? If not, I'd entertain a motion to accept the financial statements for July.
So moved. Second.
I've got a motion second. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Sousa.
Thank you.
With that, I'd entertain a motion to have all ordinances and resolutions read by title only.
So moved.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed, no. Motion carries. That brings us to unfinished business. The first item of unfinished business is the second reading of ordinance 1131. Madam City Clerk Treasurer, if you could please read that by title only.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Maumelle, County of Pulaski, State of Arkansas, an ordinance to be entitled Ordinance Number 1131, an ordinance adopting and enacting supplemental provisions of the City Code for the City of Maumelle, Arkansas, providing for the repeal of certain ordinances not included therein, providing for the manner of amending such code, and providing when such code in this ordinance shall become effective.
Thank you very much. I'll go ahead and open the floor for discussion. If there is none, this will be on third reading at the next council meeting. All right, moving on to the next unfinished item business, and that was just general discussion about the sanitation rate study. We had that presented to us. We've included a copy of that in the council packet in its full form with the correct numbers added in one of the charts there. Mostly just looking for guidance from the city council as to whether or not we should go ahead and prepare that ordinance, increasing the rates, and then if so, what we think that, what should be included in that in terms of some of the other options that were recommended. We can always amend an ordinance after it's introduced, so discussion on whether to add a particular option now is not necessarily dispositive as to whether that has to remain in an ordinance that's passed. But rather than just run with ordinances, wanted to open up the floor for discussion. So consider it open. Councilmember Mazzoni?
Yeah, few questions. So it looks like what they used for the actual numbers was just that actuals. And the big thing that has me concerned there are salaries and benefits. So that is based on not 100% manning. So based on this thing, we could finance, because if you look, like 2023.
Are you looking at page?
I'm
what
looking
page
at
are you looking
page 28.
The table
28
four?
of the rate study.
Table, so is page, yeah, it should be 28, I believe, of the package. Table 4 there.
Got it.
So where it starts putting all the salaries and benefits all together, that's a lot lower than what we had budgeted for. So that's actual, which is great, but that's perpetuating the problem. So I don't know how many we're undermanned in there, but since in 2023, we budgeted $1,040,000 for that. That seems to be a significant manning shortfall. So we don't want to fund our new sanitation fund on keeping it undermanned, is my concern.
I wish Mr. Ford was here to speak to that. My understanding is that I reiterated just that multiple times, that it wasn't just actuals, that we were significantly under spending relative to the budget due primarily to vacancies, and then expressed the concern that one of our original goals was not only to be able to pay for salaries that we're currently budgeting for, but be able to increase the salaries to the point where they're not vacant anymore, and have that built into what we think that rate structure was supposed to be. It's been an awfully long time since he and I were discussing those levels of numbers. But are you saying?
If you look at the other numbers, they match what was in our budget package for expended for actuals the prior years. So I'm assuming they took what was actually spent based on because we've been low on manning every year, so those numbers are matching from the actual approved budget from 2024.
Okay.
So one question is, how many, 'cause I think we are 2 down, but on there, how many workers are we actually down? Because that's a significant percentage. Now, insurance was high, we lowered insurance a lot in 2024, so I don't know if we had a surplus in those years for insurance, but salaries, everything that would run true to budget.
I can follow up with those questions
Okay.
with Mr. Ford. I see what you're saying. We're down last, I heard 16 in public works, sanitation, and streets. I don't know what percentage of those specifically are in, Mike, if you can come down. I don't know what percentage specifically are in sanitation, but it is the department that tends to, I think, suffer the
Yeah.
most vacancies and the highest turnover.
Right. I think sanitation is down 6 throwers and 2 CDL drivers right now, so, yeah, I believe that to be correct. I
So
can get
8 of in fact, they were unable to run recycling today, and they'll just pick it up tomorrow and whatnot, but just due to staffing issues. It's something that you'll recall we may talk about. The priority is always sanitation, just general solid waste pickup, followed by recycling, and then yard waste several times a year. We end up picking those up a day or two later. But this is the first time that we've not been able to pick up recycling on the scheduled day I was trying to get that information
Yeah,
from Mike.
it's been a while that recycling hadn't been picked up, so.
Yeah.
But
And it
yeah.
will be picked up, so for anyone wondering why your recycling wasn't picked up, we'll get to it.
Right.
And I tried to find salaries of ours based on the neighboring cities, but it wasn't in their budgets. Would you happen to know about how we stand on salaries comparable?
Yeah, we're smaller than some of the surrounding cities, don't have as much.
If you could speak more into the mic, please.
You know, I don't think we have as much revenue, so our salaries are lower. It depends on which city you're looking at, kind of depends on how much lower we are. Yeah, we're a little bit less than the surrounding cities.
In the reality, I think for most of the our CDL rates are significantly lower than a lot.
Right.
But CDL market is bigger than just other cities. You're competing with private sector. And while we're not competing a whole lot with throwers in the private sector, that job category is basically general labor category. And so we compete with the private sector it's not like there's a career field that people just stick in as throwers. So we compete with the private market on that. One of the and nowadays there's plenty of jobs starting out with no experience for those wanting to work in warehouses or factories. It's $15, $16 starting out, no experience. So we are lower than some of our competitors in throwers and lower than that market in general, but that's the case with I'd say most of the positions in public works, sanitation, street department.
And I will say, the heat of the summer, we don't get many applications. Winter, when it's cold winter, hot summer, it's hard to get people in. And hopefully when it cools down, we'll start getting more applications and a little bit better choices to choose from, hopefully, so.
I was talking to Mike earlier before the meeting. He mentioned that back when there was plenty of employees, it'd be nothing for them to have 2 throwers on the back of the truck and then a thrower in a follow truck following behind who was able to sit in the air conditioning and cool off for a little while and then rotate out. As it is now, Mike was saying that he was on the back of a sanitation truck the other day, filling the vacancy that we have in that position. Just making sure that the loads are being picked up.
So yeah, being short-staffed, we used to swap them out in the bitter cold and the hot summer, and right now they're having to run the whole routes, and without people to swap out, it's tough. So, but anyhow.
Yeah.
We're hopeful.
One of the, I'll kind of, there's several options that are included. I told Mike, we'll see if the council wants to get in that tonight or when we're looking at, the ordinances specifically. There are two options in the study that they looked at, and one was what the study, or what the cost of, running, don't go too far, Mike.
Okay.
What the cost of a leaf pickup is, and that's a very labor-intensive position with one driver and 2 to 3 laborers at any given point in time. Our laborer positions are the hardest to fill. They're out in the weather, whether that's a hot day or a cold, wet, rainy, icy day. They're on the back of the truck in the inclement weather. So when you look at things like leaf pickup, even if it's seasonal, do anticipate additional shortages in staffing during leaf pickup times. Conversely, one of the options that we looked at was transferring recycling over to waste management. If we do that, that removes the bulk of the thrower position, because the bulk of the throwers are working on recycling. You still need some throwers for yard waste. I think when you look at those positions, it's the recycling trucks that have a driver and 2 throwers at any given point in time. So both of those options not only have a monetary, they have a benefit in terms of what they're offering to the residents, the services that we can provide. They also have a cost in terms of how much that costs for a fee. And then they also come with operational costs and benefits that either make it easier for the sanitation department to get the job done or more difficult. So those are just things to consider when looking at those options as well. Councilmember Mosley?
Yeah, I was going to ask you if we still rely on some community service people that have been maybe sentenced to community service or accepted community service as part of the bargain. Do we have folks that do that?
We have some that do community service. Usually it's at the shop washing vehicles, and I don't know if insurance or liability of them being on the back of the truck is what we need.
Okay.
So they usually wash sanitation trucks and do stuff around our shop, so.
Okay, all right, appreciate it.
And did they used to run sanitation? You've been with Public Works for at least a couple of years now.
Not that I ever
Okay.
was aware of. We never put them on the back of a truck. Just due to
Okay.
the
For some reason, I was thinking they were, but that may have been years and years ago.
I don't remember it.
Okay.
I used to think that the folks that were picking up trash along Maumelle Boulevard were community service workers, but that's usually done on Thursdays by the sanitation crew that isn't.
No, it's by the grounds maintenance crew.
Grounds maintenance crew?
Yeah, picking up
Okay.
trash, yeah, so.
Okay.
All right.
Got one more question. As far as, it's a follow-up to what I was asking earlier. If we continue the way we are with the sanitation fund, when are we projected to use up all the fund balance? Do we have a kind of a projection on that as far as?
I wish I would have brought the budget in. We can look at those numbers. A lot of the fluctuation in price that we've seen with the sanitation department is in years where we're not buying sanitation trucks.
Right.
We tend to add money to the reserve fund. In years that we are buying sanitation trucks, we tend to take from them. That was operating a little bit on. We have been trying to iron out and attribute specific costs to the appropriate department in terms of labor. So, for example, if we have a grounds maintenance crew that is being paid out of Public Works or the general fund, and that employee has to run on the sanitation truck for a whole week, then essentially what you have is indirectly the general fund is subsidizing the sanitation fund because the salary being paid to the person working on the sanitation truck is actually in the general fund. So we've been, and it can be a little bit of a logistical headache to make sure that we're going in and appropriately assigning an employee to one department and rolling that cost to the appropriate department. And since we've started doing that more regularly, we're seeing, obviously that means the sanitation costs are going up to the appropriate level, to the amount that it's actually costing the city to do it at a more true value. And since then, we haven't been adding much to the general fund. We can go ahead and look, and maybe RJ with his graphing and algorithms would be the best to predict that, because it's such a big chunk to the overall budget for that department is, you know, what are we running, $1.5 million, 1.2, 1.5 actuals. When you're throwing in $300,000 to $600,000 in trucks, that number fluctuates much quicker relative to the annual budget than the general fund or street fund does.
Do you have any thoughts on that, Mr. Mazzoni?
Yeah,
Councilmember Gardner?
Thank you, sir. Just a few initial kind of thoughts, I guess, where I'm kind of leaning with this. I'm looking at page 26 of the PDF packet, which is basically the options, where it has the 4 different options there. You know, I think at a bare minimum, we can't continue on the path that we've been on in terms of losing, you know, dollars each year and expending more than we earn. So, you know, option 1, obviously, that just kind of gets us back to what I would, you know, almost think just where we need to be. But then I think what's important is down the road, it's been 19 years, is that right, since we last adjusted rates? 19. And so I think one of the best things that we could do is look at that option 4 as well, where we're doing these annual adjustments so that future councils don't have to deal with this. It seems like that's a pretty standard metric that other cities use to adjust their rates, and rates change every year. That's just a fact of it. And so if we're leaving them alone, then that's a year where we have missed out on, you know, increasing our cost because our cost goes up. And we know we have a fixed cost, fixed rates, or fixed contracts with these carrier or these places where we're dropping our waste off. So, you know, I certainly think option 1 is, you know, what we need to do, and then also considering that option 4 where we look to build something in where there is an annual increase based on, you know, the CPI. I think that would be important to look at. In terms of the vacuum truck, I live in a neighborhood where there's not a lot of established trees, so I don't know. I see a big call for that from residents that live in older, more established neighborhoods that have a lot of trees. I get it. I drive through them all the time, and I see that. We're going to have a big increase one way, or I say big increase. If you're looking at option 1, it's what, $7, $8, $7.50. So big's relative. You're not talking about a big monthly amount, but that's going to be a big jump for some. And so going from that, and then also including the vacuum truck, I'm not sure. I'd be curious what other people's thoughts are on that. I lived in North Little Rock for a while, and while I did enjoy that service over there because I had very big, large, mature trees, I've also, you know, followed the city of North Little Rock's pain points that they've had with those trucks, because I saw what I personally swept into those leaf piles, and I know there's a lot of breakdowns from larger sticks and things like that. So yeah, that's something to consider. I know they have a difficult time maintaining that. But those are just kind of my initial thoughts on the options. But I think it's far past time to make a change, and I think we need to future-proof this for, you know, the city's purposes, so that we're not having to constantly look at this and you know, catch up from behind.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember Shin?
If we were to go with waste management on the recycling, what would we do with the current equipment that we have, the trucks that we use now, since they're configured different than our garbage trucks?
Mr. Hogan?
What was that
So
question again?
the trucks we're currently using for recycling, if we were to transfer recycling over to waste management, what would we do with our current
We would
trucks?
still use them. pick up yard waste with them, and we still use the rear loads, when the one-armed bandits or the automated trucks, go down because they're high maintenance and, yeah. So, the trucks that we have, we would still use them and maintain them.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember Mazzoni?
Yeah, thank you. So, to answer Councilmember Gardner's, for me, as far as the leaf vacuum, that may be something, I think, down the road, but we don't have enough laborers now to add more. And it just doesn't seem, it seems to be pretty pricey for what we get. I think we need to look at fixing the short-term problem first. Just thinking about the going to waste management, the problem's gonna be buy-in from people right away of having an extra container out there as well. There, you know, spaces, these ones we have take up a lot of space, so there's gonna be some feedback. So I'm kinda leery on that one too. I kinda think we should look in depth at option one, at least for a short term, set up something for a year or two to start looking at these follow-on plans. And I hate to say it, but there is an error in their math on table 4. They're back on page 28.
Yes, sir.
They did the 3-year average for the expenses. That was based on, that was the numbers from before the fix. So if you average out the 21, 22, and 23 for those 3 years, it's actually about 1.66 mil, so that actually goes up. It's close to that number if they went for a 4-year average, but I don't think they would, since 2020 is all scale low. That really would not, that would skew the numbers too much. So that's something else, not optimum for us to add into the calculations, but I think this is something we need to look in depth and do right, because sanitation is something we don't want to fail at.
Councilmember Mosley?
Yeah, I would agree with Mr. Mazzoni and Mr. Gardner as far as, I'm interested in option 1, and option 2, I'm not interested in turning that over to waste management. I like what we've got. And option 3, of course, that would help me. I've got a lot of trees. But to be quite honest, I knew somebody at Sherwood, and they said that's a lot of trouble. But they use a vacuum truck. They use, and they said that goes down and that sort of thing. But they said once you give it to the folks, they'll never want to give it up.
If I could chime in, so, you know, in some ways we compete with the city of North Little Rock, our neighbor, who has that. They, of course, don't charge for sanitation. This goes back years and years and years. I was talking with former Mayor Joe Smith, who's now the city's liaison with the Municipal League, and he was saying that, you know, of course, we've heard it, but I wanted it confirmed from someone who's been there, that their sanitation rates are effectively built into their electrical rates, and that it's the proceeds from the electric company that goes to the general fund that then pays for the sanitation that is there. I asked Mayor Smith what his feedback was on the leaf pickup, and he said, well, it's a great way to become very popular very quick. Everyone will love it until you get out there and the problems start arising from that. And some of those were things like the vehicles going down, the inconsistency in running routes, and that it's heavily dependent upon, you know, because it takes so long per residence. If you have a particular fall day where no one has raked their leaves out, it'll be real quick and you'll run on time. If the next week is the weekend following where everyone had just raked it, it'll be very slow, and then heaven forbid you get a week of rain, and then because they can't vacuum it when it's raining, then it's highly irregular in terms of their operations. They're able to mitigate some of that because they have multiple trucks and a larger economy of scale there. In talking to Mike quite a bit about this and how this would function here, you'll notice option 3 actually had 2 different prices. One if we bought the truck itself, and then 2 if we bought, just like a trailer-mounted leaf vacuum that goes behind. The trailer-mounted leaf vacuum requires more personnel to operate that because it doesn't have a certain automated function to it. What Mike was saying is that if we were to end up doing that here, he'd actually recommend that we do 2 trailer-mounted leaf vacuum trucks rather than the automated truck, simply because, if we have an automated truck and then that goes down, the length and time that it can take to get that vehicle repaired can be longer than the entire duration that we would normally be vacuuming up leaves. And if we only have 1 unit, the idea of getting everyone used to raking their leaves to the front and then having a vehicle go down all fall will have fallout that didn't make him comfortable. So even though they're having staffing troubles, if the council wanted to proceed with that, which uses more personnel, he would definitely go for the option that allowed them to not be shut down for extended periods of time in the event that the vehicle or vacuum wasn't running properly. So just extra information about that option in general.
Yeah, I'll finish my comments. As far as the leaf deal, I would vote for it if everybody else is interested in it. Anyway, yeah, it would benefit our neighborhood, but I can live without it. And the adjustments, the annual adjustments, that's probably something we ought to either look at now or look at later, but we may want to just kind of see how it goes at the $6.64 for a year or so, unless you think, Mr. Gardner, you've looked at the numbers more than I have on that. If you think it really, we really ought to put that in effect, I could be talked into that.
To complicate matters, another option is to just write something into the ordinance that requires a look at the rates on an annual or biannual process. We have something similar to that for the elected official salary task force, where the ordinances say we have to look at this. That was before my time, but I think it was because it just would go extended periods of time without being looked at. I don't think we need a rate study every couple years necessarily, but I think just monitoring that, at the very least, this idea of saying we're keeping up with it on a regular basis. It's the only main revenue source that the city has that isn't somehow tied to a percentage. So a sales tax is percentage. As inflation occurs, a sales tax automatically adjusts for inflation because it's a percentage of sales. Property taxes in a similar way are based on millage, and so it's the only one we have that is just a set fixed fee, and if you're not paying attention to it, just inflation and time will get away from you. Councilmember Tierney?
Yeah, I like option 1. I mean, that's something I definitely think we need to do and address. And then option 4 is something we definitely need to make an element of that. The option 2 on recycling, I like the idea of keeping it in-house. I mean, Public Works is doing a great job with it, so I'm less inclined to want to bring in a third party and then, start trying to rely on them and then make adjustments there. In my neighborhood, I don't really see the need for the leaf truck. We have some people who put out a lot of leaves, but they've got to have it now, a bag in it. Now the city will, pick them up if they get them out to the curb like that. So, I like option 1 and 4.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember Shin?
Coming back to the leaf pickup, when you were running for mayor the first time, we pigeonholed you for about an hour when you came through our neighborhood, and that was one of the issues that I brought up with you. And we talked about some of the pros and cons, and shortly after that, I was working on a construction project that fall, and everybody wrecked everything out to the street. The truck did not run, and then it stormed heavily for 2 days. And when we came back to finish that project, the streets were flooded, and the drains were all stopped up. The street drains were all stopped up because everything in the gutter went down the drain and then had nowhere to go. And in my neighborhood, that could be catastrophic if the water had nowhere to go. So my views on that changed seriously, 6 years ago. because everywhere I'd been, I thought it was great until I saw flooded streets and flooded yards and water up to houses.
I bet Mike could, and I'm hitting a lot of stuff just for the record in case we don't hit, if it doesn't make the minute, if it doesn't make the ordinance, we may not be talking about a leaf vacuum truck again. It's something that's come up routinely, periodically, for as long as I've been around. Mike could probably tell you when we were looking into this, a few years back to see how feasible it was. One of the big you've talked with other cities about the leaf vacuum truck. What was their feedback on operations and kind of as to what?
So you're exactly right. You know, it's a great service. I used to live in North Little Rock too. I think the service that we have right now is a good service. Get it bagged. We pick it up on a weekly basis. I know some of the other surrounding cities only pick yard waste up every 2 weeks. I know sometimes it's more trouble, but when I used to live in North Little Rock, I would blow my leaves out to the curb and I'd get tired of looking at them, and I'd just bag them up and dispose of them because the routes don't run on a consistent daily basis, and it is tough. So, you know, there's benefits to it, but I see probably more downfall due to drainage issues and us dealing with, you know, streets and drainage.
Since we already have issues in
When
the
wintertime comes and it freezes up, it does cause havoc, and that's the biggest complaints from other cities that I hear. So, you know, I can give a few ideas. I don't want to sway y'all. It's y'all's decision as a city, and it's us, you know, to provide that service. But you know, going from that to recycling, I will say, me and the mayor have talked about it, and we do have a great service. A lot of people don't like the smaller bins. They would rather have the rolling carts. I get that. If, you know, we do have a good service. Our contamination rate is low. I hate to give it up, but at the same time, you know, the rolling bins are bigger. You get more recyclables in it. So instead of having
have a
2 or
lid.
3 bins, they have a lid, and an automated truck picks those up. And if Waste Management takes it over, they provide carts to every resident in Maumelle. So it may, you know, the benefit to this is it may make more people recycle than what recycles now, because the last count that we got, we did a count for 2 or 3 weeks, and it's about between 3,400 and 3,800 recycles that residents do now. So it you know, it's tit for tat. There's benefits and downfalls of anything you do. So just keep that in mind. You know, I hate to give up our service because it is good, but then again, it might make more people recycle. So.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember Gardner.
One thing with those carts for recycling, something that I found in Sherwood, is that since it was a bin that had a lid on it, a lot of trash ended up in those bins. And I don't know what waste, if that comes back on us as a city because our contamination rate is high, but with having some rental properties, I found a lot of trash that ends up in there, and I'm like, what do I,
Yeah,
what do you do with it?
Yeah, so the contamination rates do go up because people use them as trash cans. Waste Management monitors that, and if it keeps happening, they'll just take the cart away from the resident. So they have a bad list for people that are, you know, that violate more than once or twice or 3 times. So, yeah.
If I can speak to that.
There is go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, Maumelle has a great contamination rate, which means that the amount of non-recyclables that end up in recycling is very low. That's because it's a very labor-intensive process on the pickup, and it's an open lid where you can just see it and go. Contamination rates in Maumelle are significantly lower than our surrounding jurisdictions. As a member of the Regional Recycling and Solid Waste Reduction District, by virtue of just being the mayor in Pulaski County, I sit on that board. They're constantly pushing for lower contamination rates. The practical difference is it wouldn't affect, if Maumell's contamination rate went up, it wouldn't affect the city's budget in any way, shape, or form. Waste Management's a private enterprise. Obviously, they're preaching lower contamination rates because then they have to deal with the sanitation that goes, the solid waste that goes there that they can't recycle. And single stream recycling is a very manual process anyways, because everything that you mix into a single bucket, somebody else is splitting up and separating into the appropriate category with machines and in the ways that they can be used, but it's not that. So it doesn't have a practical implication other than technically ours is low. If ours goes up, I guess there would theoretically be a microscopic increase to the price or to the cost that Waste Management pays, and they'll eventually pass that on to their consumers. We would be entering into the same agreement that our surrounding jurisdictions have with Waste Management. I don't know, are we the only?
We're the only one,
We're the
as far
only one
as I
that handles
know.
our own recycling
Yeah, yeah.
on the pickup side.
Okay. A couple of other things on this. To answer Councilmember Mosley about, which method of, I guess, changes every year I would prefer. I tend to think of the council, we could be short-sighted sometimes and live in the now rather than living, years down the road. And I think my fear is if we don't do some sort of annual trigger, if we use a CPI or whatever it may be, is that we may come back in 2025 or 26, and the council at that time can look at this and go, oh, well, our sanitation account, we were plus 400,000 that year. Well, that may be because we didn't buy a truck or something to that effect. And so that's kind of my fear, is that future councils may see that surplus and think that everything's nice and rosy when we're not keeping up with the escalating cost, and we just have a surplus because we didn't have some of those big expenses. And then we can come back in the following year, order a truck or two, and then we're looking at a much larger loss. So that's why I would be for, I would really like to see something built into this ordinance that goes ahead and has that annual trigger based off of the CPI. And then lastly, going back to option one, looking at that increased amount of 664, I think it would be prudent to get the consultant to come back with some updated statistics, because as Councilmember Mazzoni pointed out, and if you look up in there where they're doing the math, they did the math on this increase based on averages that were too low. So I think it would be prudent for us to have corrected numbers before we, put something into an ordinance form. So those are my last thoughts.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember Mosley?
Yeah, I would agree with everything you said there, Councilmember Gardner. On that, so I could support that as far as the automatic adjustment. Again, I had asked earlier how long we could go on the way we are now and not exhaust our fund balance and not run out of cash to maintain that fund as a standalone fund. And I didn't come away with anything comfortable. Was it 1 year, or was it like 5 years, or?
It was we'll get back with you on that information, and
Okay.
and RJ may be able to explain this better. You should be able to equalize how much we're spending on sanitation trucks to come up with an average year that it would be expended.
Okay. All right, I'll hold on that. I would mention also our sanitation fund is an independent, kind of standalone fund. And I've been in conversation with one of the council members that was there back in 2002 when they first set this thing up. And she continued to say that it was an enterprise fund. And so we've been, City Attorney Thornton and myself have been trying to dig into that and find out if it really is and what that means. Does it mean we can't accept money in case it's really, we run out of money, we can't accept it from the general fund or whatever? And we have not been able to actually find any, the Municipal League recommended we look back at all the documents, and I think Mr. Thornton had already done that himself. And we couldn't find, I guess we never could find anything that said actually enterprise fund, referring to it. But, it was pretty clear that it was intended to be kind of a standalone fund, and I think we ought to keep it that way. Just to, it shouldn't be something, in my mind, that should be subsidized by the general fund, and it shouldn't also be a revenue source for our general fund. So, going forward, whether we call it an enterprise fund or whatever, I'd just like to see it, try to maintain its independence and just, I think that gives us an incentive to keep the costs down. So, anyway, that's my thought.
Thank you, sir. I don't think we're in any danger as treating the sanitation fund as revenue for the general fund. I agree wholeheartedly that the sanitation fees should pay for the sanitation service, which is why in a lot of ways we've been trying to dig in to make sure that the costs were being attributed to the proper department. Obviously, if we're purchasing a sanitation truck, that's fine, that makes sense. That sanitation truck very clearly fits in the sanitation department. But over the course of years, even before we started pushing out individual things, we started divvying out different, we started fine tuning. There are some employees that are half paid from one fund and half paid from another fund because approximately half of their work is attributed to one department and the other half to another department. And so we've been trying to flesh that out even more, and that's one of the reasons that we're seeing the rate is because we're doubling down to make sure that we're not sort of indirectly using general fund money to pay for the sanitation fund. So I agree wholeheartedly, and that fits what we've been trying to do. So my understanding is that it looks like the council is wanting an ordinance for option 1 and option 4, 1 being the rate increase recommended. We'll get with Doug with PMI to look at the numbers and iron those out a little bit and come back with something regarding that. And then it looks like we'll just run with the CPI being drafted in the ordinance. Those can always change in ordinances. We all know we change ordinances, but that gives us a good indication of where to start. If there's nothing further, speak now or hold your peace till next meeting. Okay, then we will move on to new business with the first item of new business being Resolution 2024. Thank you, Mike. 2024-31, amending the general fund budget. Madam City Clerk Treasurer, if you could please read that by title only.
A resolution of the City Council of the City of Maumelle, County of Pulaski, State of Arkansas. A resolution to be entitled Resolution Number 2024-31.
All right, this is a fun little resolution. The fire department received a $5,000 donation through Tractor Supply and would just like to be able to spend that money.
Motion to approve Resolution 2024-31. Second.
Motion second, Councilmember Tierney.
I was just going to say what Mr. Gardner said.
Okay. Did you have anything to add, Chief Buford?
Just obviously, we're very thankful, and we had a large purchase to buy some new hose. We have 20-year-old fire hose, and this is going to go directly to that. So as soon as this is appropriate, we may order tomorrow. So we're very appreciative. We're also going to try the employee that Tractor Supply nominated us for, try to invite him for a lunch at the fire station.
Outstanding. I've got a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of adopting Resolution 2024-31, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed, no. Motion carries. That brings us to Resolution 2024-32, expressing a willingness to utilize federal aid funds. Madam City Clerk, if you could please read that by title only.
A resolution of the City Council of the City of Maumelle, County of Pulaski, State of Arkansas. A resolution to be entitled Resolution Number 2024-32. A resolution expressing the willingness of the City of Maumelle to utilize federal aid transportation program funds, surface transportation block grant, and carbon reduction program.
Thank you very much. All right, this does not bind the city to spending any money. This is just the resolution that we need to be able to submit the application for this. project, and the general idea of this, just backing up, for years, we have sort of internally engineered and paid 100% of the cost of engineering. We were looking at the deadline and trying to think years in advance, because these things seem to take years. What are some projects that we think the city needs to be working on now, and are there ways to get it I don't want to say free, but 80% of that paid for? In talking with Scott Grummer, he recommended looking at this access management off of White Oak Crossing to try to prevent what we think some future headaches may be with White Oak Crossing and sort of its access to some of the other areas. If you have questions, Scott may be able, he can give a little more information on that, but Councilmember Mosley?
Yeah, I just, I got to thinking, one of these roundabouts would be, I guess, in Maumelle, on the Maumelle side, and actually within the Maumelle city limits, and then the one on the east side, I think that would be in the county. Would that be correct?
That is correct. It's our extraterritorial jurisdiction. It's the location I talked about probably in more depth at if it wasn't the last meeting, the meeting prior, where we were talking about trying to get access to the other side of the interchange, and sort of getting this on RDOT's radar as sort of that first step. I don't want to rehash all of that unless you all have questions about it. But yes, one in the city and one out of the city. At this point, I'm not sure that we would be applying for two. It looks like one, but the letter that we submitted originally, the project that we're kind of selling is White Oak Crossing access management, and the initial thoughts are that one or two roundabouts nearish to the interchange would be it. I think we've largely scrapped the practicality of trying to do one east of the boulevard or in the area not included in Maumelle. So we're really just looking at a single roundabout, we think, in Maumelle.
Okay, because, yeah, one of the things I thought was, we ended up, all Maumelle taxpayers ended up paying for the interchange. And at one time, we thought we were going to get the county and maybe some developers and North Little Rock to all contribute some money toward that interchange. And, this is if these roundabouts are going to benefit the county and North Little Rock, it'd sure be nice if we could find a way to get them to go in on it.
So that would actually be the benefit of applying for the grant, right? Because it would just be 20% paid for by the city. The engineering, we haven't even got price estimates because we're not hiring an engineer unless we get the grant. And so that's kind of what we did with the White Oak Crossing roundabout. The city's paying 15% of that, and North Little Rock is paying 5% of that to total the 20% match, because of that particular one, 3/4 is in Maumelle and 25% not. But yeah, I don't disagree with you. I do want to point this out because it came really late with the interchange. Mayor Watson was able to secure a $1 million grant from MetroPlan to go toward that interchange. So I guess they chipped in 1/14 of the project price.
Right, and we got MetroPlan in there, but boy, old North Little Rock skated free on that deal, so.
Yeah.
And the county, I guess. Okay, that's all I got on this. When the time comes, I sure would hope that we can get everybody to pay their fair share.
Thank you, sir. And again, this does not obligate funds. If we do receive a grant for engineering, we would be coming back to the city council with a budget resolution at that time. We could decline the project at this point. MetroPlan just wants to know that it's not, that the council's generally on board with it and plans to fund it if approved. Is there any additional discussion on that? If not, I entertain a motion to adopt resolution 2024-32.
So moved.
Did I say? 32. 33 has the exact same title. What is it? I'm sorry, was there a motion?
So moved.
I've got a motion and a second to adopt resolution 2024-32. Any additional discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed, no. Motion carries. Which brings us to resolution 2024-33, expressing a willingness to utilize federal aid funds. Madam City Clerk, if you could please read that by title only.
A resolution of the City Council of the City of Maumelle, County of Pulaski, State of Arkansas, a resolution to be entitled Resolution Number 2024-33, a resolution expressing the willingness of the City of Maumelle to utilize federal aid transportation program funds, surface transportation block grant, and carbon reduction program.
All right, so this is for the Club Manor corridor improvements. Y'all will recall that we applied for a grant for a project that at that time was estimated to be $2.3 million. We were seeking funding in the amount of 1.8. We were awarded $1.1 million, so not the full amount that we could, as MetroPlan was just running tight on grant allocations and decided to fund 2 projects partially instead of 1 fully. So this, we're just going back and applying for additional funding for the Club Manor corridor project. Open the floor for discussion. Councilmember Mosley.
Yeah, I mentioned last week that I was having second thoughts about doing this. My biggest concern is we're basically going to be cutting the capacity of the road in half. And right now we've got a very, very nice 4-lane road that gets us back and forth. It's a good road to get us north and south in Maumelle without having to get out on the boulevard. And I worry about going down to 2 lanes, that it would become congested, because now you pretty well go down that road, you hit the stop sign, and if there's several people moving along, you've got 2 lanes there that can go through and so on. And so it's a quick way to get back and forth. Also, when you're getting out of there, you've got 4 lanes. People can turn right, and at the same time, somebody's trying to go straight or turn left. I worry about that, the capacity there. One of my questions is, if we do this project, are we going to tear up the whole street? Or are we just going to add a median in one of those lanes and use the existing street?
We're going to use the existing street for the half of the road, the 2 lanes that will be future traffic will remain largely in their current state. We're not tearing it out and rebuilding something. The bulk of the construction occurs in the 2 lanes that will no longer be used. So there may be some impact, some sort of drainage or impact to it, but overall, we're not tearing out the whole road and building a whole new one.
Okay. But again, at the beginning, I hate to give up half that capacity, and somebody's going to build on Track D eventually. We don't know what's going to be there right now. And it would be nice to have that road at full capacity in case there is a demand for people getting in and out of a shopping center or a residential deal or something like that, just to keep traffic moving. That's one of the reasons, one of the things I've always campaigned on, is trying to keep traffic moving here in our city. And I know that some of these people that want to do planning, it's almost social engineering. They want to slow things down. They want to basically add congestion and things like that. And I don't agree with that. We're a suburb, and we kind of need to get around. We need to get in and out of town. So I will be voting no on this tonight. Like I said, I've changed my mind on this. I would have liked to have made it to that, the city put on a little presentation about that a couple of months ago, and I think I got a notification email the day before, and I didn't check my email, so I missed that. I would have liked to have gotten a better head in the game. But I hope everybody else will think about that, because we may have messed up our capacity on a very nice 4-lane thoroughfare that we've got. I just hate to mess up a perfectly good 4-lane road. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I do want to point out and respond to you mentioned a point that I've said. In fact, when you say it, I seen Scott with a poker face on, but you use the term social engineering. I say that because I think I've said that to him 150,000 times if I've said it once. And that idea of governments engineering or doing different planning things in order to entice certain behavior does not feel like what the role of government ought to be. However, it's very interesting sometimes to take a step back and look at whether we're already in a state of social engineering, right? So what would something look like if something had been socially engineered in the past? And if that looks like it is now, then are any deviations from that standard social engineering and the government trying to change behavior through different policies and actions, or some sort of righting of the wrong? It gets really interesting. So one of the goals of Club Manor is, first of all, we've got a road that has a traffic count, I think it was at 6,800 a month a while back. Don't quote me on that. I wish I would have had the numbers. Significantly lower traffic volume than you would expect for a 4-lane road. And one of the things we want to do is to slow the traffic down a little bit there so that it is a safer place for people to be. That is, that we want to create an environment much like a Main Street. You know, a lot of cities have their Main Street or Main Street USA, these pushes to go, hey, remember when people used to go out and about before the automobile industry sort of incentivized this giant road highway network, and that became the sole means of getting around? Is it possible to also allow that sort of stuff to where we're very aware and cognizant, and in my case desirable, of the fact that we live in an automobile-centric society, but have we done that at the expense of making it so that people can't walk from their home to the store, to the park, and back and forth? And so one of the neat things about Club Manor is there is a beautiful low traffic volume area just parallel to it, about 2 blocks away in terms of Maumelle Boulevard. I say low traffic because the traffic counts between where we'd be narrowing this road down are not high traffic areas on Maumelle Boulevard. That is, from Odom to Millwood is not what we'd call high traffic volume. So if you're trying to get somewhere in a hurry, just hit that and you get there in a hurry. But then this allows people to shop, exist in an area just parallel to it. And so it's a fun thought exercise, because I and still continue to battle this idea that government should be putting things into place to make people do the right things. I mean, I guess we tell people you can't murder and fine people for speeding, so part of the role of government is included in that. It's a really interesting topic that is certainly that I've had many conversations about. So with that, I'll shush for a moment. Councilmember Tierney.
Yes, I understand what, you're saying, and, how we want to try to, build like a walkable community and this and that. I do agree with Mr. Mosey, though. I find it very difficult to tear up a beautiful, nice, perfectly working 4-lane road that right now is built for future capacity, for future growth. I mean, this is where we say we want to put our emphasis here. This is where we want people to go downtown. This is the heartbeat of Maumelle, and so it's already there for that, set up for that future growth. So I'm afraid that if we cut down the road, spend all this money, tear it up, then we'll be, bam, back into a log jam. People can't get around. Then it will be discouraged from growth because, it's too congested to go down there. You don't want to put a business down in that location. It's just too hard to get in and out of. I mean, so it's 6 of one, half a dozen other. If this project had been coming up with us and not tearing up that 4-lane road, I would have been in support of it. But I'm with Mr. Mosey on this one, that I just have a hard time turning up a perfectly good 4-lane road to put in walking paths.
I understand. Thank you, sir. Councilmember Gardner.
I've been here 11 years now and use that road almost daily, and I can I'm trying to think, I don't know that I have been passed or I have passed another car more than 10 times in those 11 years that I've been here. The traffic volume is just so low, and usually people are either going past Kroger, turning to Splash, or from Splash to the apartments up there, or, and just, they're going so many different directions. It is very rare that I pass, when I say pass another car, meaning in my direction of travel, going the same way I'm going. It's very rare that I pass somebody else or get passed, by another car. It's such a low volume. To steal a little bit of the thunder from further in the council packet, you may notice that letter from RDOT that was in there. One of the reasons for that denial of the stoplight was because that there are so many options for people to get on the boulevard, and they don't have to use that particular intersection where we're looking at putting a stoplight in, because the road network in there is so good. There's so many different access points that traffic takes care of itself. I'm overall, I'm for this Club Manor project. I think we have to look to the future in terms of what do we want this area to look like. I strongly believe Maumelle has been overbuilt road-wise in many areas. Millwood is another one that's a 4-lane that I wish we would convert half of that into a pedestrian pathway so people can get to trails because they're blocked in up there. But I understand the vision that they had back then with putting these wide boulevards in, but I also look at it as a huge expense to the city to maintain over time, because we've got these wide roadways that we have to take care of for very little traffic. And so I think if we can do things like this, sure, it's going to be an investment, but we are investing in the future of this area, and I really believe this is going to spur more growth in that area versus leaving it alone. So, overall, I mean, we're not approving the project tonight. All the mayor's asking us to do is go back to MetroPlan and look for additional funds, and then we can decide later, based on what we get, if we want to move forward with it. But I think it's a good thing to do. It's going to make our city much more walkable, a much more recreation-focused area, I believe. And I understand taking capacity away from some of these roads, but that road is so overbuilt, and there's such a good connection of side streets in that area. People will find a way to get through there. I don't see traffic being an issue because of us taking this from 4 to 2. So.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember Mosley?
Yeah, I forgot to put forth my proposed alternative. Yeah, when you criticize something, you should have an alternative. What I would like to see us do is preserve the 4-lane, keep the 4-lane there, and then put your walking trail next to it, where there's a sidewalk, I think, right now behind Kroger and that sort of thing, and just move that pedestrian walkway. Just build that. Leave the road there and just build the pedestrian walkway as part of this Maumelle Mile. It achieves the same purpose, and it will keep the traffic capacity there. I think that would be the way to go, and I'd like to make a motion that we table this for one more meeting and let everybody think about that.
I won't need it at the next meeting.
Pardon?
It's a useless resolution at the next meeting because the application is due this month.
I'll still go ahead and make that motion.
A motion to table this resolution to the next city council meeting.
So that we can think about that a little closer.
Is there a second to that motion? Motion fails for lack of second. Councilmember Gardner?
Motion to approve resolution 2024-33.
I've got a motion and second to approve resolution 2024-33. Is there any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed, no.
No.
Motion carries.
Mayor, could we have a roll call on that?
Certainly.
Councilmember Mosley,
No.
Councilmember Grunwald. Yes. Councilmember Mazzoni.
Yes.
Councilmember Gardner.
Yes.
Excuse me. Councilmember Williams. Yes. Councilmember Tierney.
No.
Councilmember Shan.
Yes.
Councilmember Holt.
Yes.
Motion passes. That concludes new business. We'll move on to mayor's comments. First, let me just say that there's a blood drive here at City Hall tomorrow from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. If you are able and willing, please feel to just swing on by, or you can reserve a spot specifically if you'd like. But with that, y'all will see in the council packet was a letter from RDOT regarding the traffic signal that the city had submitted to RDOT to get a traffic signal on Maumelle Boulevard and Audubon or Montpelier. That has been in the city council budget here for a while. We went ahead and hired somebody to conduct a traffic study, a traffic signal warrant study. We submitted that to the state, and they came back and said that that did indeed, the traffic levels do warrant a signal at that intersection, but that it was essentially too close to Maumelle Boulevard or to Odom South for a traffic signal at that location. Long story short, they refer to a Maumelle Corridor Control of Access Plan that was done back in 1981 as their reasoning for wanting to not allow a signal at that intersection. I requested these documents that they referred to in their letter back when we first received this in the middle of July. I finally got those documents Friday, so had a chance to look through those to see what specifically was going on. They had some interesting documents regarding a waiver that they had granted back in 1991, I think, allowing Montpelier to connect to Maumelle Boulevard. And so the Highway Commission granted a waiver way back then to allow Montpelier to connect, but they're saying that the traffic signal is denied there. So I think we have several different options. I do plan to respond to them. And one of those options is to say, hey, maybe we need a Maumelle Corridor Control of Access Plan that's a little more recent than 1981. And the alternative is I didn't see anything in that plan that actually mentioned traffic signals at all. It mentioned intersections, and they've already granted a waiver for the intersection, but I sent that information late Friday afternoon to both Scott and Andrew. We do plan to talk about it and at least be back in communication with RDOT about this. But I wanted to give you all an update on the status of that. So if nobody has any questions about that specifically, you have now been informed, and we can move on to council member comments. Councilmember Mosley?
Yes. I've been thinking about going ahead and we had addressed a possible audit committee about 4 or 5 months ago. And it failed by a 5-3 vote, and there was some, I tried to put as much reasonable stuff in it as I could. And what I would like to do is put forth another one here. And what I would like to do is invite Council Member Grunwald to co-sponsor something like that. You had some very good ideas about what an audit committee should look like. And by the time this goes into effect, I'll be gone anyway. I know there were some council members that thought I would be too aggressive, a member of such an audit committee. So I'd like to try to put that forth again and think about that. You can let me know next meeting, and if you're so inclined tonight, I would ask City Attorney Thornton how to try to do that together without violating Freedom of Information Act and that sort of thing. But what I would envision is we would take that ordinance before, he could route it to both of us, and we could come up with some ideas that we like and go from there. So.
Thank you, sir. Are there any additional council member comments? City attorney comments? City clerk comments? If there's nothing further, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to adjourn the city council meeting of August 19th, 2024. Second.
I've got a motion and a second. If there's no discussion on that, all those in favor of adjourning, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed, no. Motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you.